The Azteca Stadium in Mexico City was buzzing with the energy of thousands of fans awaiting the quarterfinal clash of the 1986 World Cup. Argentina was facing England in a match that promised to be much more than a simple football battle. For the Argentines, the match had a deep meaning, marked by the still fresh memories of the Falklands War, a conflict that had left scars on both people. The whistle of the Mexican referee, Arturo Yamasaki, broke the expectant silence, and the ball began to roll over the green grass. The midday sun beat down hard on the players, but none of them seemed to feel the heat. In the center of the field, Diego Maradona, the man who had made an entire nation dream, was preparing to write his own history. His skill was known throughout the world, but at that moment, against England, his legend would be forged. The first half was tense. Both teams fought tirelessly, but the score remained at 0. Every pass, every dribble, every attempt at goal was charged with palpable tension. In the first few minutes, Maradona's skill had already made it clear that he would be the star of the match. In one of his most memorable moves, the Argentine number 10 began to weave a series of dribbles, dazzling the English defenders as if they were mere shadows in his path. The ball seemed glued to his foot, as if an invisible thread tied it to his body. But it was an unexpected moment that would forever change the course of the match and the history of football. In the 51st minute, when the tension was at its peak, the ball fell into the English area. Maradona, with his gaze fixed on the ball, ran towards it, surrounded by several defenders. In the air with a leap that seemed to defy the laws of gravity, Maradona extended his arm, and without anyone seeing, touched the ball with his hand. The stadium fell silent for a second, as if time had stopped. No one, neither the players nor the referees, realized what had just happened. The ball went into the goal, and the Argentine players began to celebrate. Maradona, with a mischievous smile on his face, raised his arms to the sky, but the English public could not believe what they had just witnessed. The referee, despite the protests of the English players, declared the goal valid. The hand of God, as Maradona would later describe it, had marked the fate of the match. The English were furious. The Argentines celebrated without yet knowing that this goal, although controversial, would go down in football history as one of the most discussed, but also one of the most iconic. The match continued, but the wind of controversy blew strong. However, what would come next would be even more epic. Maradona, in what many would call the goal of the century, would prove that not only luck, but his unmatched skill would be what would define that match. The controversial hand of God goal had left everyone in the stadium, and the entire world, in a state of shock. The English players could not believe what they had just witnessed. Captain Peter Shilton watched in shock from his goal, still processing the goal that had gone in a way that defied the rules of football. Argentina's players celebrated, but the air was thick with a sense of injustice that was impossible to ignore. The referee had undoubtedly made a mistake. The television cameras clearly showed that Maradona had used his hand, but the result was already sealed. In the changing rooms, Argentina's coach, Carlos Bilardo, tried to calm his players while the English lashed out at the decision, calling out the referee, but the man in black would not budge. Maradona's goal was recorded in the history books. However, despite the English fury and the controversy surrounding that moment, Maradona did not let the shadow of controversy cloud his mind. He knew that the game was not yet decided, that there was still a lot of football to be played, and that his team needed his genius more than ever to secure victory. And it was not long before the magic was unleashed. The 55th minute of the match became a milestone that would never be forgotten. Maradona received a pass in the middle of the field in the area that many considered his kingdom. The English defenders, still bewildered by the previous goal, could not cope. With supernatural agility, Maradona dodged 1, then 2, 3, and finally 4 players who tried to stop him. As if the ball had a life of its own, it rolled under his foot in an almost hypnotic way. In Maradona's mind, everything was clear. This was no longer just another goal. This was not just a confrontation between teams. This was a match for history, a victory for the world. Opportunity to give his nation something greater than a simple triumph. It was time to show that football is an art, and that only the chosen ones have the ability to write their own history. With a sublime dribble, He eluded goalkeeper Shilton, who had come out to confront him. Maradona, with an almost disconcerting calm, pushed the ball into the back of the net, leaving the English defense behind as if they were mere statues. The stadium exploded in a deafening clamor. But this time, the Argentine celebration was much more than a cry of victory. It was a celebration of greatness, of the genius of a man who had just transformed football into something more than a sport. That goal, which would become known as the goal of the century, not only consolidated Argentina's lead, but silenced all those who had doubted Maradona's legitimacy. As the Argentine players ran to the edge of the pitch, applauding, hugging, and jumping for joy, the English players stood watching, overcome by the beauty of the play, despite the injustice of the first goal. Maradona knew that this goal not only changed the scoreline, but sealed his legacy. No one could take that moment away from him, neither the referee nor the detractors. Fate had chosen its champion, and football, like never before, was witnessing one of its greatest legends. The final whistle of referee Arturo Yamasaki resounded in the Azteca, and with it, the fate of that epic confrontation was sealed. Argentina had defeated England 2-0, and the stadium erupted in cheers as the Albiceleste players embraced each other with an intensity that reflected not only sporting victory, but also a collective emotional release. The goal of the century was already immortalized in everyone's memory, while the Hand of God goal remained the central topic of conversations and debates in every corner of the planet. Maradona, exhausted but full of indescribable energy, walked towards the locker room. He knew that this victory had consecrated him as one of the greatest, but at the same time, he felt that the controversy over the handball would never leave him. The goal he had scored with his right hand would remain a shadow, but not for him. Not when he had already given everything on the field, when he had demonstrated, in a sublime way, what it meant to be a football genius. The journalists were already crowding outside the locker room, ready to bombard Maradona with questions about the goal. They knew that this match would be remembered forever, and they wanted to know if he regretted what had happened. But Maradona, with a defiant smile, answered them. It was the hand of God. I don't make the rules of the game, only the plays. And with those words, the legend took on a new tone, a touch of irreverence that only he could give it. Despite the controversy, the game was not over for Argentina. The team was advancing towards the semifinals, and the euphoria in the country was uncontainable. The streets were filled with flags, songs, and celebrations that echoed in every neighborhood. In Argentina, that goal represented more than a victory on the field. It was a vindication, a way of overcoming the pain of the past, of giving Argentines something to be proud of. Meanwhile, in England, the pain of defeat still cut deep. The players knew that, although they had played a good game, football is not always fair. The hand of God became a symbol of that injustice. However, no one could deny that Argentina had played better, and Maradona, with his magic and his dedication, had been the main reason for that superiority. In the following weeks, Argentina continued to advance in the tournament, and Maradona continued to shine like never before. In the semifinals, the Albiceleste faced Belgium, and Maradona once again showed his prowess. With 2 brilliant goals, he led his team to the final of the 1986 World Cup. But the memory of the hand of God continued to haunt, ever present in the minds of fans and experts. Some said that Maradona had dealt a blow to the ethics of football, while others saw him as such a great figure that the controversial goal was just a minor detail. Maradona was preparing for what would be the final against Germany, but in his mind everything was clear. This tournament, this World Cup, was written for him, for Argentina, and it did not matter how it came to the end. That cup was not just a championship, it was the consecration of a country, of a nation united by the passion of football, but also by a man who, with his talent and his audacity, had left an indelible mark. The final of the 1986 World Cup, Argentina against West Germany, was played under a sky that seemed to foreshadow the greatness of the moment. The Azteca Stadium, the same stage that had seen the birth of the legend of Maradona, was now preparing for the match, the most anticipated of all, the culmination of a World Cup that had seen both brilliance and controversy, both brilliance and controversy. Argentina, with their captain Maradona leading the team, faced Germany, a strong opponent determined to win the title. The first half was a spectacle of top-level football. Argentina, with Maradona's magic, touched and moved the ball with a precision that dazzled the spectators. Maradona, despite the blows and criticism he had received for the goal with the hand, continued to demonstrate his ability to change the course of a match. La Albiceleste took the lead with a goal from Jorge Valdano, and the stadium erupted in jubilation. But the Germans would not give up so easily. Franz Beckenbauer's team held firm, and before the first half was over, they had managed to tie the match with a goal from Rudi Völler. The second half was a roller coaster of emotions. The Germans, with their combative style of play, managed to take control of the match. Argentina began to feel the pressure, and the World Cup dream seemed to fade away. However, Maradona, as always, rose to take his team to the next level. It was then that, with a masterful play, Maradona assisted Jorge Valdano, who scored the second goal for Argentina. The score was back in favor of the South Americans, but the battle was far from over. As time ran out, Germany did not stop pressing. The Germans managed to equalize again, thanks to a goal from a young Lothar Matthäus, who with his skill scored a key goal. The score was 2-2, and the match was turning into a psychological war, a game of nerves. But in the 85th minute, Maradona's genius shone again. With unmatched field vision, he gave a pass that, in its simplicity, would be remembered as one of the most important plays in history. Maradona, from midfield, sent a long, precise pass to José Luis Brown, who fired home to score Argentina's third goal. The Argentine fans erupted in jubilation, while Germany's players began to feel the pressure of a scoreline they could no longer reverse. Football had spoken, and this time Maradona's magic could not be stopped. The final minutes of the match were full of pure tension. Germany tried everything to equalize again, but the Argentine defense, led by the experienced Oscar Ruggeri, held firm. Despite one more goal from Germany in the final minutes, the Albiceleste managed to resist and maintain their lead. The final whistle blew, and the stadium exploded in a deafening roar. Argentina was world champion. The 1986 World Cup was theirs, and Maradona, with his unparalleled talent, had been the architect of the glory. The goal of the century, the goal of the hand of God, and the final victory over Germany will forever go down in football history. Maradona, at that moment, had not only won the World Cup for his country, but had cemented his legacy as one of the greatest footballers of all time. That 1986 World Cup was not only a triumph for Argentina, but also a testament to what football can be when played by a true genius. The return to Argentina was a celebration like no other. The entire country celebrated not only the World Cup victory, but also the definitive consecration of Diego Maradona as a living legend of football. The streets of Buenos Aires were filled with fans, flags, songs, and hugs, as if the entire people were united in a single beating heart. Maradona, the man who had led his nation to glory, became a symbol of unity, passion, and sacrifice. The hand of God had been the first step towards eternity, but his talent, his vision, and his magic on the field were what truly placed him among the greatest of all time. The years passed, and Maradona remained an unmistakable figure, with his charismatic personality, his love of football, and his immense legacy. The 1986 World Cup was the high point of his career, but the impact of that tournament never ceased to mark football history. The images of Maradona running towards the goal with his hand, and the unforgettable dribble against the English, became icons of the sport. In every corner of the world, his name remained synonymous with football at its finest. However, the goal of the century and the hand of God also left a legacy that divided opinions. For many, the goal with his hand was never an act of cheating, but a play of cunning and audacity at a crucial moment. Maradona, in his own way, had challenged the rules of football, but he had also given the world an unrivaled spectacle, one that transformed the way sport is viewed. The decades they roasted, and Maradona remained an emblem of world football. His life and career full of ups and downs, but always marked by that 1986 World Cup. His story, and that of the Cup, became a legend that transcended generations, and the goal of the century was remembered as the masterpiece of a man who knew how to transform football into something bigger than a sport. He turned it into an art form. In the end, Diego Maradona not only won a World Cup, not only was he the best player of his generation, but he left an eternal message. In football, genius knows no boundaries, and sometimes, the most improbable plays are the ones that define destiny. The hand of God was just the beginning. Maradona's true legacy was to show the world that when the ball rolls, magic is in the air, waiting to be captured by those who are destined to make history.